Am I live? It doesn't show me live, Kyler. You're just like Jonathan. You're trying to pull this same stuff on me here. He says I'm live, but it doesn't show me live. And they sit over there and smile because they know that they have me kind of a little bit on edge, thinking that, what if I say something? What if I do something? And then it goes live. All right. I'm live. Okay. Kyler's running the operation again now. We gave Jonathan a break. Kyler was in the backcountry all summer. Where were you? Up in the Bob Marshall? Mm-hmm. What kind of job that's not even a job to go spend the whole summer in the Bob Marshall wilderness of Montana.
It wasn't bad.
They actually paid you for that?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Cool. Hey, folks. Welcome to episode 98 of Elk Talk Live. Man, 2 more episodes and we'll be at 100. Kyler was just saying when we get to episode number 100, we got to do something special. We don't know what it's going to be, but we'll work on it. Elk Talk Live is brought to you by GoHunt.com and Bowtech Archery. Let me start that over. If you want to be notified when we're going to go live on Elk Talk Live, you can text Randy, R-A-N-D-Y, to 64600 and Bowtech will notify you. And then we got Go Hunt. If you have been following our stuff, you know that Go Hunt came out with their 3D maps about 3 weeks ago. And today I got the link for doing it on my phone. So, really cool stuff. We released a video today on our YouTube channel where you can see how the 3D maps work on your desktop and how I'm using it. We picked my Colorado first rifle elk hunt for this year as our e-scouting sample. And we didn't pick the unit. We went to Rocky Mountain National Park because there's no hunting in Rocky Mountain National Park. That way we aren't going to blow up anyone's units. I'm not going to get all this hate mail and everything. But anyhow, part of the deal with GoHunt.com is 2 things. They have a gear shop. And I have convinced them to take all of the products from all of the companies that are sponsoring and making this event free for you, that you can get 10% off everything in your cart when you go to Go Hunt's gear shop and you check out with promo code Randy. So we're talking Mystery Ranch packs, Sitka gear, what are the other ones? Black Gold, Tight Spot. I already said Sitka gear. That's the one everyone was asking for, a promo code for Sitka gear. Well, we got it. 10% off. Nobody, if you follow our stuff, we don't want you paying retail. Also Leupold Optics. Depending on the item, you'll get 5 to 10% off at GoHunt.com. So, and if you want to go directly to Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls, they'll give you 15% off. And if you want to go directly to Gerber, they'll give you 20% off. See? Nobody pays full retail when you hang out with us. Nope. Canada-Trek, they'll even give you a free $75 pair of gaiters. So, with that, we got a whole bunch of questions again this week, and we were gone last week. We missed last week because we were in Nevada. That's why my lip is cracked right here. I got a big scab crack right there. It was hotter than heck down there, and sitting up at 8,500 feet in the sun, glassing for mule deer, my pale Scandinavian, just whatever you want to call me, clam skin or whatever, is not made for the heat and elevation in Nevada. And I'd like to tell you that I shot a big buck while I was down there, but I got close. I got close a couple times, but I just didn't feel right. You know how when you pull your bow back, you got to have that, this is going to be perfect. And I got, the best shot I had was this buck was broadside, feeding, had no idea I was there. But he was at 58 yards and I had a pretty strong crosswind. And I was hoping I could close about another 15 yards. And then even with that crosswind, I would have been comfortable. I know a lot of people could make that shot, but I passed. So Eventually, his little buddy who was with him saw me, and off they go. So, the other thing we got to talk about is to make sure that, I know people ask a lot of questions that are antelope questions, mule deer questions, whatever, but as you know, lately we've really been trying to stick to elk specific questions because it is called Elk Talk Live. So, not that we don't get interested in black bears and antelope and mule deer and whitetails and all that, but so when I was in Nevada, I saw 3 nice bulls. I mean, okay bulls, younger bulls, but they're going to be really good bulls someday, that were all shed. This is the time of year, in the last 10 days, most of the bulls have shed their velvet. And now what they're doing, those hard-horn bulls, as quick as they shed their velvet, they start leaving bachelor groups. They now are going somewhere that they think, the cows usually stage over here. I think I'll hang over here for probably another 10 days. And then at that point, I'll start going in and searching and checking these cow groups. So when you think about this dispersal, this what I call early season, right? I got the 5 seasons: early, pre-rut, peak rut, post-rut, late season. Anything in August I call early season. And the early season, now that they've shed their velvet, the bachelor groups start to disperse and they go to places where they're going to stage prior to the pre-rut. Well, the pre-rut, then they start mingling with the cows a little bit until you get to that peak rut. And it's not like there's one day on the calendar that, oh, today we woke up and it's pre-rut, and 10 days later they wake up, oh, today we woke up and it's peak rut. It's a transition that happens, and it can be slightly different in a day or two based on your latitude and based on your elevation. So one of the things that's happening this year, just the opposite of last year, 2019 was a very moist year across the West. 2020 is turning out to be a very dry year. So what's happening in a really dry year? Well, a couple things. First of all, water, if you're in a state where water is scarce, say Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, maybe parts of California, maybe Eastern Oregon, water is going to be a premium. It's going to concentrate a lot of elk. So if you can go and scout and look and see which of these water sources still have water, that's going to be one of your tickets. Well, then you get further north. You get to northern Colorado, northern Utah, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Washington. We've got water in every drainage. So water, even on a dry year, isn't going to be that concentrating factor. But moisture is. So people are like, well, Randy, what's the difference between moisture and water? Well, water is on the landscape. Moisture that I'm talking about is in the form of rainfall. So we go out and we see this mountain range, and well, that drainage looks identical to that drainage, and they're 5 miles apart. But this drainage, for some fluky, quirky reason, got more moisture and rainfall than this one. You know how a thunderstorm, sometimes they're hit and miss. And if you go to all of the weather stations, snow-tell sites, stuff like that, even though it's not snow right now, but you go to all these places in the mountains where they have weather stations, and you can see what the precipitation has been. And if you know exactly where that weather station is, you can say, all right, this drainage had more moisture than that drainage. Well, elk are very selective feeders in a drought year. What you're going to find in a dry or drought year is the elk are no longer dispersed equally across the landscape. They're going to be in pockets. And when you're going to find, it's harder to find them, but when you do find them, they're going to be in much higher densities, both the bulls and the cows. And why is that? Well, as selective feeders, they are going to the best feed on the landscape. And the best food on the landscape is going to be where the most moisture is. And for us, the human, our eyes and our knowledge of it, it's not perceptible. That drainage and that drainage look identical, but one of them got more moisture, so it's got better feed, and that is where the cows are going to be. And if that's where the cows are going to be, that's where the bulls are going to be in September. So in these drought years, you can almost use it as a tool, as a way to find elk easier. And then we get into, all right, how does that affect, say, a post rut or a late hunt? Well, those are sanctuary periods, but bulls still need some food. So they are going to seek out the sanctuaries that are in the drainages that had more moisture, because they only want to have to go 200, 300 yards to get food to bed, food to bed. That's kind of their pattern. When they're done with the rut, they have two responsibilities. I need to stay alive until tomorrow and avoid hunting pressure, and that's where sanctuaries are absolutely critical. And they need to, if they can't put on any fat, they need to at least maintain their nutritional plane so they don't lose any more weight, because they've lost so much weight in the rut. If they're going to get through the winter, they got to have a sanctuary somewhere where there's decent amounts of food. So you look at that and you say, well, I've got all these sanctuaries that are on my map. Well, which ones are in the drainages that have more moisture? Those are the sanctuaries I'm going to focus on in a drought year, even if it is a post-rut or a late season hunt. So then if you go another way, this affects where you find elk. If you go to the video that we did, we released it today. It's talking about the new 3D map system that GoHunt has. And if you go to gohunt.com and you sign up for the Insider, you now get the maps. The whole mapping system comes as part of your Insider package, including all the draw odds, strategy articles, all that. Use promo code Randy, they'll give you $50 in the gear shop. But this video, we talk about how in certain periods of time, the elk are in elevation bands. Now, this doesn't necessarily apply in the big flat pinyon juniper mesas of Arizona or New Mexico. But in most of elk country, they've been pushed, we've taken over the valleys as humans. So the elk have been pushed more into the hills and into the mountains. So I'm going to paraphrase the example that's in that video we released on YouTube today. But in my unit in Colorado, I know that the winter range is down here at about 7,500 feet. And I know that the summer range is up here somewhere above 11,500 feet. Well, I'm going to be hunting right in that transition from peak rut to post rut. So October 10th. They're going to be somewhere in this transition range. They're not going to be up on the summer range, and they're not going to be down in the winter range. They're going to be somewhere in between 7,500 and 11,500. And then when you see in the video, one of the tools I've been working with GoHunt to develop is what we call elevation bands, where I can just select a band of elevation and say, this is where I want to focus, because I know based on the time of year I have my tag, that's where they're going to be. And that eliminates pretty much all the rest of the unit. Yeah, there's going to be some elk in those other places, but the highest density of elk is going to be in this band of the transition range. So what happens in a drought year? Well, in a dry year or a drought year, a lot of times the stuff up high can dry out and turn really, really brown really, really quick. So a lot of times those elk will move down into the timber, into those broken patches where it's not quite as dry and where there are more water sources. Now, some people have told me, no, in our area, the springs are up higher, and by the time they get lower, they dry out. Well, if that's the case in your area, then you'd look in the higher part of the transition range in a dry year. Whatever it is, you got to be thinking about that stuff. How does that impact where the elk are going to be when I'm trying to find them in the time of the year when I have my tag? So, what I do know is that in a dry year, it's going to be harder to find groups of elk. But when I find them, I'm going to find them in larger groups. Bachelor groups, sometimes you find them there are 2 to 5 bulls. In a dry year, you might find them congregated in that area where there's really good feed. You might find 5 to 8 bulls in a bachelor group. So when we look at this stuff and when we're doing our e-scouting like we are right now, there's never what I would say like a checklist of, okay, yep. And after you check off 4 boxes, well, that's where they're going to be. There's so many variables that go into it that you have to be thinking about what is the condition that I'm going to find when I get there. Well, when you do that, you're going to see that, okay, last year they might have been here when it was a wet year. This year they're over there. So be thinking about that. So GK just said, Randy, I was looking at those elevation bands in the video today and they are most helpful. Cool. I'm glad you think so, because I've been working with Go Hunt now on these maps for almost 2 months. And I've told them my goal is that when we're all done, all of these tools my wish list of tools for e-scouting are going to be right there. And so what you saw in that video, right, there's the line tool, there's the elevation bands, there's some of the stuff I talked about when we did the Elk Talk Live 2 weeks ago, is whatever degree of slope, elk want a bed where it's less than 20 degrees. And they want a bed from the crest of either the ridge or the mountain or the foothill. They want to go somewhere either at the crest or down, maybe a third of the way down. So with all their tools that we're building in there, I have all that right at my fingertips. So the whole idea is, and you've heard me say it before, the number one reason I don't fill my elk tag and why a lot of other people don't fill their elk tag is we don't find elk. And I know that sounds really simple, but finding elk is the hardest part about filling your elk tag. E-scouting is my way of eliminating the places they're least likely to be. So when I eliminate the places where they're least likely, that means I've remained focused on the places where they're most likely. And yeah, there's going to be elk in some of those places I've eliminated. But I want to be there for my 5 days in the places with the highest density of elk. Let's see. Man, we got a lot of questions already, but I'm going to grab a couple here from the... Randy, do you hunt block management areas in Montana as a way to check harvest stats for block management areas? I don't think Montana keeps the harvest stats by block management areas, and I used to hunt them a lot, but I don't anymore. It's like, you know what? That's for the public to go hunt. The last thing you need is me hanging out there. Let's see. Okay, someone asked this one, and I think they might have even sent it to our Elk Talk podcast email. Randy, how much do active fires affect elk, and how far do they get pushed? 2 of the current big fires in Colorado are in my first rifle game management unit group, and the 4th rifle is burning along the border of my game management unit. How far back do elk run away from fires, and by the time October, November comes, will they move back in? Well, fires never burn. Let's say this is a big piece of your map, okay? Let's say it burned kind of in this shape, but there's all these little fingers and, weird diagrams or polygons, whatever you want to call it. Well, in the core of the burn, the elk, yeah, they're going to get pushed away from there. But it's not like they get pushed from here 30 miles over there. They get pushed over here, or over there, or over here, or up here. So if you think about, let's say that this was a 20,000 acre fire, and it burned really hot. So there's really nothing left there until it starts growing back next year. So that's 20,000 acres that isn't going to have a lot of elk, probably close to 0 elk. Maybe if you get some fall rain and a little green up happens, they'll be in there. But they're probably going to be right on the edges is where they're going to be feeding, not right out in the middle. Well, they're going to get pushed not that far. My experience is they're only going to get pushed anywhere from a half mile to a mile, maybe a little further. So the density of elk around those buffers of those zones, of those burns, is actually higher than before the fire. Because now you've got, let's say there was a herd of 150 elk that occupied that 20,000 acres. Now they're pushed somewhere else. Well, that means there's 150 elk somewhere around here. So I wouldn't worry about it. If it's the place that you think meets all the criteria that in your first rifle season, okay, it's that transition between pre-rut or peak rut and post-rut. Well, does it have the requirements of sanctuary? Because as quick as the shooting starts, the older bulls are gonna go into full-on post-rut mode, sanctuary mode. So does this area you're looking at have some sanctuaries with food nearby? If it does, you're still gonna be in good shape. Now your fourth rifle season that you're using in your example here, that's gonna be in November. Well, they're in full late season mode. That is all nothing but sanctuary. So then you gotta look at these fires of where are they in relation to the winter range? Because your early season, that first rifle season, they're gonna be in the top part of this transition range. They're not gonna be on the summer range, but they're gonna be in the upper part of the transition range. Your fourth season, the bulls, the cows might already be down on the winter range, but the bulls are gonna be in that band right above the winter range. So you gotta just be thinking about those things. Fires are not gonna have a significant impact on pushing elk huge distances away from where you normally would see them. So, let's see. Any tips on cutting off an elk between its feeding and bedding area, which is private, and its feeding and breeding area that is private, and its bedding area on public? Yeah, we've done this before. 2011, I shot a bull in Montana that was doing exactly that same thing. So they'd go and bed, actually it was a little bit of the reverse. They'd go and bed on private. They would spend the whole day there, in big herds, just bugling, carrying on. But then the best feed was over on public. So they're doing kind of the opposite. So what I do, see if I can use an example here. Let's say this is a block of, this is public and this is private. So if the elk, I always want the elk to be coming into the public. So I want to be right here and let them get past me. And then if I shoot, they go that way. So you just find where they're going to be crossing, and you can find sometimes at fences, sometimes it's trails that show you where they're crossing, whatever. Or if they're coming from public onto private, I want to be between them, so if I shoot, they go back in to the public. So that's the preferred way. Just find where they're crossing and cut them off. So let's see. I got a whole list of them here I got to get to. So some of the questions are pretty vague. And so if it's really vague, it's hard for us to give you a useful answer. So if I overlook your question or pass by your question, it's not because I don't want to answer it. It's just if someone says, tell me how I should hunt elk in Colorado. Well, that's so vague, so generally, it would take 3 days to even get a good start on that. So let's see, Idaho, rifle elk. October 1st through the 10th, would you cover country and bugle to locate bulls or glass sanctuary areas? October 1st through the 10th is still going to be more towards the peak rut. I'm going to be calling. I'm not going to start glassing until October 15th or 20th and on. I mean, yeah, I'm going to look around, but I'm going to rely more on calling and vocalization at that point. 2 people asked the same thing. Mechanical or fixed broadheads, and then the other person said, regarding broadheads for elk, do you choose the accuracy of a mechanical or the durability of a fixed? Well, first of all, you got to make sure that in some of these elk states, like Idaho specifically, you can only use fixed blades. I use fixed blades. Fixed blades, I've had very good luck with high quality fixed blades shooting identical to my field points. And if you want to think about how the physics of a mechanical broadhead works, in a big animal like an elk, you would prefer to have a complete pass-through. Boom, boom. That way they've lost blood pressure, they've lost air pressure, they're not going far. Well, a lot of mechanicals, first of all, when they hit the leather, the hide, some of the energy is absorbed to deploy the mechanical device. And then it's not going to go in as far because usually those mechanicals have much wider cutting edges. And it might, you can see it a lot on video. If you watch a lot of videos, you can almost tell if someone's using a mechanical or a fixed blade. Because the mechanical, it's going to go in and there's still going to be that much of the arrow sticking out. And if that arrow is still in there, you're probably not going to get as much bleeding because the hole is plugged. You're not going to get as much penetration. An elk with only one lung taken out can go a long ways. So I know everybody's got their own opinions. If you're asking my opinion, that's why I shoot fixed blades, because way better chance of a complete pass-through. Let's see, Randy, when are you going to hunt elk in the Nevada wilderness areas? Well, that requires a few things. A tag, and they're really hard for non-residents to get in Nevada. And then I can't get a film permit in the Nevada wilderness areas. I have been able to in some other states, but in Nevada, I've not been able to get film permits in wilderness areas, so I wouldn't be able to go do it. Randy, what are your thoughts on a 7mm Remington mag as a good fit for elk between your 308 and your 300 Win Mag? Yeah, it's a great fit. 7mm. I got two of them that just came in from Howa. But I'll probably still use my 308, my 300 Win Mag, and this year, if I can pull it off, I'm going to try to use my 7mm 08 for the entire season. One season, one rifle. See how that works. For an elk hunt on or near winter ground, how much snow is needed for Wyoming? A lot, because if the snow is powdery, they can dig through that pretty easily. What will get them to move more is a lot of cold, because a lot of cold, they got to move lower, where as a general rule, the lower you go, the better the food, and they need as much food as possible. So when I'm hunting late in Wyoming, I'm hoping for 0 degrees or 20 below, because I know those bachelor groups of bulls have to come down. Whereas if it's just snow, yeah, I mean, if you get 30 inches of snow, it's going to move them. But if it's just snow you're counting on, it's not going to move them as much as just brutal, nasty cold. So, what elevation will elk be at during the pre-rut? They're going to be at all kinds of different elevations. It depends on where you're at. I mean, where they're going to be at pre-rut in Colorado, which is really high country, is way different than where they're going to be at in pre-rut in New Mexico. So you got to understand, find out where the winter range is and where your summer range is, and know that in the pre-rut, they are going to be way up high where the summer range and transition range meet. And that's going to vary by location. So let's see. What time of year do elk seem to split away from their bachelor groups? We were talking about that just a little bit ago. Now that they've rubbed their velvet, the bulls are going to start to disperse. They're going to be solo for the most part during the rut. Right after the rut, they're going to go into this post-rut phase, and they're still going to be solo. And then as that transitions to late season, that's when the bulls start coming back into bachelor groups again. So right now, they're starting to think about, see you later, pal, I'll see you in November. Randy, how long do you give your plan A location before bailing and going to your plan B, C, and D? It depends on what I see. If I'm seeing fresh tracks, fresh sign, other stuff, I might give location A a whole day. But if I go in there the first morning and it's like the Dead Sea, cross it off. I'm going to spot B. And if there's nothing there, I'm going to spot C and D and so on. But if I'm seeing sign, or it's, you know, a period when they're bugling, I heard some bugling, or maybe I caught some glimpses of some elk, but it just wasn't in the right glassing location or the right setup, I'll give that place more and more time. So it's, it kind of depends. I know some people are like, gee, you always say it depends. Well, it does depend. Oh, here's one. Randy, early season. It's hot weather, midday. You go to camp or you stay out and hunt? Stay out and hunt. I'm going to hunt all day long. Usually those tags are hard to draw, and if I have that tag, I can go back to camp and sleep. I can do that in the wintertime when I come home. This is where you're going to get differing opinions from a lot of people. Do you skip the first week of September archery elk because of the drought? It's hot, little water on public land, and a full moon. Do you wait or do you hunt? Well, I'm assuming that you're asking that question because you only have a set time. You got your 5 days. If you can, I would select that 5 days to be whatever the peak premium times are, if you only have those 5 days. Me, I prefer to go later in September if all things are equal, because it's less likely I'm going to run into one of those super hot periods. You still can, but it's less likely. And nothing shuts down elk in the rut like hot weather is just, it's the killer for an archery elk hunt. So, hey Randy, for your first rifle season, how are you planning to stay warm at night in Colorado? Do you use a little heater inside your tent? Nope, I don't. I just bring a good sleeping bag, stay inside my Hilleberg tent, and off we go. We cold camp here in Montana without stoves, down to 0 degrees. And maybe it'll get to 0 degrees at 11,000 feet in Colorado. I don't know. But so that's what I do. Maybe I'll, Seek Outside sent us some of their teepee tents. And so we might end up using some of that. All right. Someone says, Randy, the discount code for Go Hunt isn't working. What you talking about? It always works. GoHunt.com, check out with promo code Randy. So use Randy at checkout, and you're going to get a discount unless you're trying to combine it with your free $50 gift card that you got for signing up. That's the only time it wouldn't work. If that's not working, let me know, because I'm going to be calling someone right in the middle of the show here. Let's see, what else we got? What is that? Oh man, I shouldn't have done that chili episode. Getting an awful lot of comments about my dysentery chili episode in New Mexico. Okay, code doesn't work on sale items. That is correct. That's if they're having a closeout or a clearance on something, Go Hunt's code won't work on that. So I forgot to say that. Let's see. Someone's asking questions about moon phases. Let's see. Randy, do you have to be a Go Hunt member to get the promo code to work? I can't seem to get it work for Sitka gear. I don't think you do. Not my understanding. Let's see. Ooh, this is a hard one. David LaGuardia asks, any advice on hunting elk in northwest Montana in the super dark timber? Northwest Montana and northern Idaho, there are some guys who have figured out how to kill bull elk every year in that country. But if you look at the harvest rates and compare the panhandle of Idaho to southeast Idaho, the harvest rates are minuscule in the panhandle compared to southeast Idaho. If you look at the harvest rates in northwest Montana compared to central Montana or southwest Montana, again, the same thing. And so the reason I bring this up, David, is I don't hunt up there just because of how difficult it is in terms of elk hunting. The guys I know who do actually fill tags up there are doing it in archery season when they can at least hear them, because it is thick, steep, nasty, blow down, slippery, wet. I wish I could give you some tips, but I don't really have any because I don't hunt in that country. So let's see. Joshua says, "Hey Randy, I'd love to do a solo backcountry elk hunt over the course of a week. What state would you recommend for this and why?" Depends on if you have points or what else you could do. If I was you, I would, and we talk about this in a lot of our spring and winter episodes. Right now, your only choice is going to be Colorado because all the other draws are down and Colorado has over-the-counter tags. Idaho has sold out. Normally, I would say look at Idaho, but I would go buy some points in Wyoming because you can buy points, I think, either through the end of September or the end of October, and that point will count towards next year. So, and depending on what your budget is, my priority is going to be Wyoming for just the fact that you don't have to buy a non-refundable license. Then Arizona, and this is if I'm building points. Then Colorado. Then I look at New Mexico and Idaho. They don't even have a point system. So, Cody says, "Hey Randy, can you get 2 different custom dials made for the same loophole scope? I shoot 2 different loads out of the same gun." Yep, I do it all the time. I have a 300 Win Mag that one of them is 180 grain E-tips. One dial is 180 grain AccuBonds. So, I have 7mm08s where one is E-tip and one is 140 grain AccuBond. The E-tips, they load them a little hotter, so your trajectory is going to be a little flatter. So sometimes I want to go to E-tips, and so I switch the dial. Just make sure my 0 is there, adjust it, off and running. So you can definitely do that. Let's see. David is here again today. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you being here. Dave has our FAQ list, our frequently asked questions. And so a lot of the repeat questions, he answers them for you. So pay attention to what he's putting out there. Let's see. No, I've not hunted that unit. A lot of you guys today are asking me questions about units that I've never hunted. No, I don't know anything about those ones. Okay, well, let's go over here then. The Elk Talk promo code doesn't work on the Gerber website. Use promo code Randy on the Gerber website if Elk Talk isn't working. I talked to them today. You're the second person who's told me that. And so they said they were going to fix it. But use promo code Randy. Let's see. Here's one. When setting up with 2 people, the shooter out in front, the caller back 50 yards, upwind of the shooter, to have the bull split the 2, providing broadside shot for the shooter. What's your recommended setup with 2 shooters in one caller? So it depends on if you're on flat ground or a slope. It depends on which direction the wind is going. Obviously, you keep the shooter still, or the caller back 40, 50, whatever yards. And then let's say you're at the same elevation as the bull. He's going to try come this way. But if you have a thermal that's going uphill, he's probably going to go up this way. So I'd have one shooter slightly hedge my bet that way. And then if you got a downhill thermal, you're going to have the bull try to come downwind of your position to wind you. So I'd have somebody that direction. So I'd kind of split the difference. And the same if you're on flat ground, then it's not thermals, it's the prevailing wind. And you do the same thing. You make sure you have one shooter further downwind from where the caller is, because bulls sometimes come straight in if they're really mad. But if they're coming and they're checking and looking and trying to investigate, they're going to circle downwind. So if it's just you and a shooter, you don't want that shooter where you, the shooter, and the elk are in a straight line. you want to see which way the wind or thermal's going and put that person that direction, because if the elk comes this way and you kept the shooter up here, that might be 40, 50, 60 yards in brush. Well, you want to head your bet and be over here, and hopefully you'll get a 15, 20, 30 yard shot. So, let's see. Randy, we're doing the second rifle season. We are camped in Colorado. We are camped around 9,500 feet. It's a pretty good chance of snow cover. Do the mule deer and elk react the same with how they move down the mountain? No, they don't. The mule deer are going to go way sooner than the elk. And sometimes the mule deer migrate even before there's any snow. It's just some photo period thing where they're like, late October, see ya, and they go. Whereas the elk will hang up there and actually wait for weather to push them. So there's going to be differences in between elk and mule deer. Randy, are you sighting in your rifle for each location? Nope. And I'll tell you why. Am I checking my zero? Nope. Mine shoots different at different elevations. Yep, so does mine. And so with my dials, I'm like, all right, I'm at 5,000 feet here in Bozeman, Montana. I know my atmospheric temperature generally, or I know what it's sighted for. So once I get that dial, that becomes my baseline of anything that is going to change. And when you talk about shooting distance, hunting distances, which are, for me, preferably 300 yards or less, at the most 400 yards. Changes in elevation, I have my charts where I look at it, I'm like, okay, at that distance, it's going to be, a ½ inch or 3/4 inch. It doesn't make that much difference. Now, if you're shooting way out there, yeah, it's going to make a big difference, and you need to know that stuff. And that's where usually people use some sort of MOA dot system. And so for me, I don't have to worry about it that much. Now, if I zeroed in at sea level and I came up to 11,000 feet, now we're talking about a difference. But for me, where I live kind of in the middle, the variations aren't that big that, yeah, I got to think about them, but they usually don't affect things. And I don't go re-zero. I don't go adjust anything based on each location. Let's see. How do I make sure I catch these live events? I'm usually running around the mountains, so not exactly up to date on current events, but I don't want to miss out. Well, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can text Randy to 64600 and Bowtech will notify you. Or you just know that anytime I'm in town on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Mountain Time, I'm going to be here. So, you liking this? Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls? Brand new system. This is the Corey Jacobson Elk 101 calling system. Comes with reeds, comes with the tube, comes with the open reed call. We just got all ours. So everyone here in the office is like, oh man, new toys. Then we've got all different kinds of calls. And the reason I bring this up, because some of the questions here have been about calls. I can't get a call that works well. If you go out to Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls and you look, and I showed this the last 2 episodes that we've done, they have a chart that shows which of their calls are for someone with a wider roof to their mouth and a narrower roof to their mouth. The most critical part of what is going to, I guess, determine your success is how well you can seal that air pressure with the roof of your mouth, between the tongue, the reed, and the roof of your mouth. If you can't seal that properly, you're never going to have much control over the volume and the pitch. So go there and look and see which of these are the best fit for the width of your mouth. They're the only company I know that makes it that specific. And it makes a world of difference. There, Kyler just put it up. It says how to choose a diaphragm. So for me, I got this great big wide fat mouth, big mouth, right? So over there on the left of what you see on the screen, you'll see low profile and mid profile. Those are the ones that I'm going to end up with. Just how it works for me. Now, Corey Jacobson, he says he's got a really high, narrow roof to his mouth, and so he's way over on the right of that chart. So be thinking about that. Don't, if you can help it, don't just go down to the sporting goods store and say, oh yeah, this one will do. I like the color of it. Think about its width and how it's going to fit in your mouth, because that is going to determine how well you can operate that. And if you go out to Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls and use promo code Randy, they're going to give you 15% off. So this is a good question. Randy, how long did it take you to learn how to use a mouth call? I'm trying. I practice every day. I was in the same situation. So I'm at a trade show. When I first met Rocky Jacobson, who was the founder of Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls, this was maybe 10 years ago. He saw me and we're talking and he's like, here, try this. And I'm trying it and I could not get that dang thing to do anything. And I told him, I said, you know, I'm just about ready to give up on diaphragm calls because I just don't have what it takes. So it's almost like he put me in a dentist chair. He's like, let me see. And so I got my mouth open and he's looking, he's like, oh, try this one. Oh, got a little better. Man, you got a big mouth, he said. And then he gives me a wider one. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm like, holy cow. I can make this work. So to answer your question, it took me a long time until I found the call that fit my mouth. I tell people it's kind of like if you were a size 12 and you bought a boot that was a size 10. They're not going to be very productive. Or if you're a size 10 and you bought a boot a size 12, not going to work very good. So some people think that I'm crazy in saying that, but it was a big game changer for me. So hopefully that will give you some things to think about. Of don't give up on it. Try different calls until you find the one that really fits. And once you find the one that fits, that's going to make it a whole lot easier to start doing all of these different tones, all these different sequences. You know, you can really put some pressure on it and just ease a little bit out and you get that high pitch, and then you roll it down into kind of that lower growl. So that's how it worked for me. I tell people I'm still not a very good caller, but I seem to be able to call in elk. So the only person that really matters who likes my calling are the elk. Do I only use calls while bow hunting? No, mostly, but no. Like when I go to Colorado this year on October 10th, in the dark, in the morning, I'll be letting her rip, man. I'll be doing locating bugles, seeing if I can find one. And if so, I'm off and going. Oh, Robert says, Randy, do you have a discount code for Caribou Game Bags? Yep. Go to Caribou Game Bags, use promo code Randy, and they'll give you 10% off. And if your order's over $50, they're going to give you free shipping. How about that, huh? What a country. Let's see. Or as Dave says, you can buy them at gohunt.com. Either way. So Richard has a good point to add to this. He says, hey, everyone has to start somewhere. Most of us learn from experience and had nothing like this for tips, especially when it comes to calling. I'm lucky that I can pick up the phone and call Corey Jacobson and say, Corey, I'm scaring everything away, man. I am so bad. And he'll be like, yeah, I know you're really bad, but you don't have to always be bad. No, he's polite. He'd never say that. But it's a way that, you know, having people to help, having someone who you can ask questions to who's not going to ridicule you, whether it's calling and learn how to use a diaphragm call or just hunting in general. I hope people are helpful. That's what we try to do. We don't want anyone to feel that, oh, I don't dare ask that because someone's going to make fun of me. So Ben asked, Randy, do you have a list of all of your promo codes? Yes, we do. It's out on our Hunt Talk forum, and we're getting ready to do another thing of where all of our promo codes reside. So right here, I'm going to copy and paste that. Command copy. And right here, save money. Don't pay retail. I don't know why I have this aversion to paying retail. So hopefully it puts them in there. Do I only bugle during the peak rut? Nope. Most people I know, they bugle all the time. The peak rut, pre-rut, sometimes post-rut. Oh, here's one. I can't remember if I talked about this on a podcast or if I talked about it on Elk Talk Live here, but someone says, Randy, do you drink coffee in the field? If so, what's your method? So in the past, I get to go shoot a lot, right? Ammo is free, rifles are free, scopes are free, so why wouldn't I go shoot a lot? We got an amazing shooting facility out here about 20 miles from Bozeman. So I would go out there, and some days I'd drink coffee, and I'd see how my groups are. And then I'd lay off the coffee for 2 or 3 days and see how my groups are. It's significant. I don't care if you're on bags, if you're how you're set up. Controlling your breathing and your heart rate when you're on caffeine is harder. So this summer, I did the same experiment over in my archery range at my house. And I used 40 yards as what my groups would be. So I'm out there at 40 yards with no caffeine. Thump, thump, thump. Walk up there, group of 3 would be, 2 inches. If I got juiced up on caffeine, man, that's things like, boom. The groups went to like that. So when I'm out in the field, no caffeine for me. Now, when I'm coming home or driving or I'm not hunting, yeah, I'm a caffeine guy. Elkhorn Coffee Roasters. We're working with them to create a new coffee blend called Big Hank. We're getting close. We've been working on it. Hopefully, we'll get there. But when I do a coffee out in the field, I use a pour over. I'm like a pour over junkie. So, okay, Annie says, Randy, you and Corey talked about that on the podcast. Thanks. See, I'm getting old. I can't remember that stuff. Let's see, it was on the podcast when you were heading to Nevada. Okay. Well, see, thanks, people. I appreciate all of you being able to remember for me. So I mean, I love coffee, but we work so hard to get these opportunities. And if you can think about how much harder it is, even with a camera or 2 behind you, and we got these short windows of time, we're usually in a new spot. The last thing that I want to do is mess it up because I'm jacked up on caffeine. So, let's see. Randy, I bought some preference points in Wyoming for next year. Would you recommend hunting some of the lower point units or saving each year for a great area? I'm new to this. I would go as often as you can. I'd go with low point units. And the reason being is when you say you're new to this, a lot of people make the mistake of they wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and oh man, all of a sudden they draw this really great tag. It took them 12 points. Well, in those 12 years, they could have been hunting somewhere and building experience and knowledge and making mistakes and learning from them. Well, what happens is now they've got this, what I call glory tag, but they don't have much in elk hunting experience. And it's going to be really, really tough for them. So it's, I would say go more, go as often as you can, and don't worry about it. Randy, does the coffee place have a promo code? They don't right now. But they're a great local little business here. So if you want to support them, Elkhorn Coffee Roasters, go there. They're just great people. And I don't get a dime for saying that. April and Scott, though, I'd do anything for them. Someone says, hey, Randy, do you have an update on your buddy Bo Beatty? Bo has had his surgeries. We're waiting to hear what the deal is. And hopefully it turns out being really, really good news. And for all of you who contributed to Bo's GoFundMe account, I can't thank you enough. Your kind thoughts, your money, your donations, your prayers have made such a difference for Bo and Kirsten. They're overwhelmed by what an amazing outpouring of support that all of you showed. Gosh, it was great. So Taylor says, hey Randy, what was that awesome donut place in Wyoming called? It was called Jerry's. It was in Rollins, Wyoming, but they shut down. Jerry just said, you know what, I've had enough of it. I've been getting up at 3 in the morning to make donuts for too many years. But now, Austin and Ty, they live in Rock Springs, and there's a donut joint in Rock Springs. They brought me some on my deer hunt last year. It's called Cowboys Donuts. So I happen to be a little bit of a donut problem. Oh, what did we name our llama? Mac. So his mom was Stevie Nicks of Fleetwood Mac, and his dad was Maverick. So it ended up being Mac. It's all out on the YouTube channel or the Instagram channel and Facebook channel, what we came up with there. So for all of you who did help support Bo and Kirsten the way you did, I really, at the bottom of my heart, I thank every one of you. And I know they do also. I know they'd love to be able to thank every one of you personally, and so would I. So we're going to go through a few more questions, but before we do, because this is free, I want to make sure that people know who makes it free. And I'm going to go through the ones where you can get their product at Go Hunt, and we're going to keep adding more things at Go Hunt that you can get your 10% discount on. Just go there, use promo code Randy. Any item that's not on sale, your Mountain House meals, Peak Refuel, all that stuff, 10% off. So, Black Gold is out there at Go Hunt. Tight Spot, I don't think Ripcord is, but they're one of the people who make this possible. Sitka Gear, 10% off all your Sitka gear. Mystery Ranch backpacks, 10% off all those. Let's see. Loophole, 5 to 10% off all your Loophole stuff. Go to gohunt.com, go to their store, and check out with promo code Randy. And if you want 3D maps and you want all the research articles, everything else, all the goods on draw odds, you name it, sign up for the Go Hunt Insider and use promo code Randy, and they'll give you a $50 gift card in their gear shop. So, and you're going to get 3D maps, and soon to be, you're going to get mobile maps. And then we got Bowtech. Like I said, if you want to be notified of these, text Randy to 64600, and Bowtech is who keeps track of all this stuff. Gerber Gear. Oh, the Randy Newberg knife. They're back in stock. Sorry they keep running out of stock, but I guess that's a good sign. We got the dual tool system and the EBS, exchange blade system. If you go to gerbergear.com, they'll give you 20% off. How's that, huh? Go to Kenetrek.com and use promo code Randy. They'll give you a $75 pair of gaiters free for promo code Randy. I mean, you're making money in this operation here. And then Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls, go there, use promo code Randy, save 15%. So anyhow, let's get some more questions. I appreciate you guys and gals letting me promote these companies, because how it works on this end of the deal is these companies come to us and say, Randy, you've got this amazing audience. How do we get access to them? And I say, well, you can help us provide them free content, because everything we do is free. We don't charge for anything. So how can you be part of that, getting our content to them for free? And if you can, give them a discount. So that's how it works. Pretty simple. Let's see. I wish I had an answer to that one. Let's see. When can we expect a live event for more than just elk? I understand Elk Talk Live is specific to elk hunting. Can we get one event for other big game species like black bear, mule deer, da-da-da? Probably can, but I'm not the guy to do it, because I'm not saying I'm an elk expert. I just get to go on a lot of elk hunts. Like this year, I've got 5 of my own tags. I'm helping Ty. I'm helping Michael. I'm helping Bruce and Tim. So I'm going to be on 9 elk hunts this year. So not that I know a lot. It's just that in the course of 9 elk hunts a year, between mine and helping other people, I end up getting to make a lot of mistakes. And I'm trying to say, don't be like Randy. Don't make that stupid mistake. Whereas some of the other stuff, I just don't get to hunt it enough that I wouldn't feel like I could answer very much in the way of questions. So, yeah, Brad says, Randy, I noticed in an old video that you put your sleeping bag in a sack to keep moisture off. What do you use outside of the sleeping bag? So if you go to that video, it's out on our YouTube channel. And so there's a couple things. If you have a Hilleberg tent, it's a 2-layer tent. So you have the outer layer. So these are tunnel tents. If you want 10% off a Hilleberg tent, go to gohunt.com and they'll give you 10% when you check out with Randy. So these tunnel tents we use, the Nalo GT that I use, has an outer tent and an inner tent. So the inner tent allows moisture to go out of it. And then if it does get hung up anywhere, it's going to get hung up on the outer tent and run off. So the condensation that you get, how many times have you woke up, right, and this foot of your sleeping bag is damp? That's because you had condensation on the inside of your tent and it sloped down and it got down by your feet and it dripped off. And that condensation comes from the ground, but mostly it comes from your breathing and respiration. So what I do, I have, first of all, a sleeping bag liner that I sleep in. It adds about an extra temperature factor of 3 to 5 degrees. So inside my sleeping bag, you got your sleeping bag, inside that's a liner. And I climb inside the liner because then I don't have to wash my sleeping bag every trip either. I just pull the liner out and I wash that. But then outside of it, I have a bivy bag or a bivy sack, whatever you want to call it. I have a Rab ultralight bivy, and now I've went out and looked and they no longer make that. But there's all kinds of these super ultralight bivvies that what they are is they're like a waterproof fabric that's a little bit bigger than your sleeping bag. So you pull it up over your sleeping bag, and if you have condensation, it's going to hit the bivy and run off and not get in your down sleeping bag. Because we all know that down, the beautiful feature of down is that it is very, very warm, compacts very low. So its warmth to size and warmth to weight ratio is excellent. When it starts to be compromised is when it gets wet. So I use that bivy sack to make sure that my down sleeping bag does not get wet. So, because the performance of that sleeping bag is going to go way down if it gets wet, if it's a down sleeping bag. Let's see. Hey Randy, if I can buy one of your Gerber knives, what one and why? I would say it depends on what type of work you do. A lot of people have said, well, I've grown accustomed to the replaceable blade, exchangeable blade knives, and these aren't disposable, these are replaceable and resharpenable. So a lot of people just like that feature of having 3 different blades. And so it depends on what you do and what you like to do. It's hard to really answer. I use them both. Some people like a traditional. I mean, this is a beefy knife right here. You get your hand on that. If you're doing really, really heavy stuff, I'd go with this. If you say, you know, I backpack a lot and I want to have the benefit of having an extra blade that, you know, whatever reason, it's hard. It's really a hard one to say. I guess whichever you prefer. They both are designed with the same concept. On this one, you have a tendon tool that takes care of all of the stuff that would normally dull this blade surface. And then here, on the EBS system, the exchange blade system, you have a serrated blade that serves the same purpose of this tendon tool. Use the serrated blade for all of the hocks, the bone, the gristle, when you're separating the head, the really thick leather down the back. And when you do that, your 2 main cutting blades, the backstrap blade and the task blade, are going to stay in perfect shape. So if you do it that way, you should get probably, well, if you are real disciplined about using the tendon tool and the serrated blade for the nasty, dirty work, you will get 3 elk out of each of those blades. And then with the EBS, you can just run them through a pull-through sharpener and you should be good for at least another 2 elk. Let's see. Wow. Elkhorn Coffee. I just went to Elkhorn Coffee Roasters and they have your promo code ready. Use Randy for 15% off all orders over $30 or more. They must have did that when I was out of town last week. They sent me some pictures of some of our stuff that we're doing with them, but I didn't know they were going to let her rip there. Cool. There you go. Elkhorn Coffee Roasters, 15% off anything over $40 or $30. Huh. James, thanks for telling me that. I didn't even know. I'm going to have to call him tomorrow. Randy, how do you hunt late season pressured bulls in the Gila in an area with a lot of roads? Well, in the Gila, other than Unit 16B, there's a lot of roads. So, sanctuary. And there are some canyons. There are some mountains in some of those units that are super steep. There are sanctuaries that are created by boundaries, right? You got some really big ranches around some of those places that the elk move back and forth. Most hunters aren't going to hunt up against that boundary. They don't want to mess with it. So those areas, half mile on each side of it, those become sanctuaries. Sanctuaries are places where there's not much hunting pressure. So there's a lot of sanctuaries there that don't necessarily have to do with being far from roads. They could be terrain, topography, elevation, boundaries, stuff like that. Let's see. I'm looking for one really good final one here. Randy, what hunt are you most excited about this year? It's obviously the one I'll be doing with my son Matthew in Oregon. Anytime I can hunt with him, everything else doesn't really matter. If you gave me a sheep tag, I still don't think it would be as much fun as getting to hunt with Matthew for a week. All right, I have an elk and a deer tag for Central Idaho. I'm going to hunt for 12 days in mid-October. Have you ever hunted elk and deer at the same time? Yes, I have. What would be your strategy? Focus on one or the other, and if you luck out and get the first one, then focus on the second one. If you're kind of focusing on both and hemming and hawing, you're going to do a crappy job of either of them. That's been my experience. I talk to other hunters, they're like, yeah, every time I get greedy and try to do two at once, I end up with 0. So if I was you, I'd probably focus on the elk. Just because you've paid more for the elk tag, you're going to get more meat out of the elk. And if you fill your elk tag, then start looking for deer. So anyhow, folks, I really appreciate y'all being here. We're going to be here next week. You going to be here next week, Kyler? Yeah. Kyler's going to be here next week. I'm going to be here next week. And I think we're even going to be here the week after that. You're not going to be because you're going to be in Nevada. The guy's got an archery mule deer tag in Nevada. I just got back. Hopefully his lips aren't as sunburned as mine when he comes back. Anyhow, really appreciate y'all. I hope you're staying healthy. If you're like me, I can't even explain how refreshing it was to be out deer hunting last week. Yeah, I knew the odds were slim, but I got away from the phone. I got away from the TV. I got away from Facebook. I got away from all these things that seem to be grinding us down right now. And I was there having a camp with a bunch of friends, and damn, I hope you all get to go do that. Just don't take it for granted that you're always going to be able to do this. It might be your health. It might be your financial situation. It might be that your job moves you somewhere. There's just so many things that can change in your life where taking this for granted could be something you regret someday. Go out, hunt, and have a great time. Doesn't matter if you fill a tag or not. You're out there on the public lands. You live in America. You're spending time with family and friends, and go do it. Thanks for watching.